Hello, welcome back to History of Wine and the Vine. I'm Emily Kate. So this week we're going to be continuing along our drinking and drunkenness mega series, and we'll be discussing drinking and drunkenness in the ancient world as categorized kind of by man, woman, and child. So obviously these three sectors of society definitely had very different kind of expectations upon them, and you're going to see just how different they were. So first let's start with children. Children in ancient society aren't necessarily what we think of as children today. So children today I generally think of people under the age of 18, but in ancient societies, in many, including ancient Israel in particular, you were a child, you were under your parents' control and rules and everything until they died. So you were a child for a very long time, and when they died, you then inherited kind of the plot of land and kind of family business, so to speak. So clearly very, very different. How people would be generally introduced to wine as children would be at something like a banquet. So celebrating a milestone or a life cycle event would be how somebody would be introduced to wine, probably similar to today. And you'd be introduced maybe by family, and then you would kind of learn about it from your friends at school or kind of just with the neighborhood kids, and then you would really learn how to drink at the symposium or at the commissatio. So the symposium in Greece or the commissatio in Rome. So in general, drinking in children was not such a bad thing if you could keep it in check. There's actually a story in Deuteronomy, and it is about a son who's under kind of the care of his father and the whole family, and he drinks too much consistently. He's just getting drunk all the time. And the problem with the drinking in this instance is not embarrassment. It's not anything that has to do really with that. It's that it's twofold. One, he's ingesting too much of the produce that the family is producing. He's just kind of taking up too much of the grapes. And the second is that he shows an inability to inherit the estate and to run a farm and kind of manage a farm properly. So these two very kind of utilitarian reasons give us an idea about how kind of children and wine were treated in those days. So it wasn't really about embarrassment, it was just kind of practicality. Then we also have the only kind of drinking age, if you will, that we get from antiquity. We have Plato, who in his work Laws, he says that boys under 18 really shouldn't be drinking a lot of wine. So, okay, that's okay. But really that was boys. Now women typically really didn't drink, and certainly were not really allowed to get drunk. So women were allotted passum, which is like sweet raisin wine, and this was generally anything that was sweet and low in alcohol they could have. So passum, and then they also had boiled sweet must. So kind of like the pressed grape juice just boiled down so that it was like the sugars were concentrated. And Pliny tells us that it was actually illegal for women to drink in Rome, and then cites a very unfortunate story about a Roman woman who tried to drink from the vat in her cellar, and her husband beat her to death, and then he was acquitted because she wasn't supposed to be drinking in the first place. So not such an easy go for women in terms of drinking and drunkenness, but men certainly had a very easy time. They would go out drinking till all hours of the night, stumble home, and expect sympathy and to be taken care of by their wives. So much easier for them. And drunkenness was not really something to be ashamed of, as long as you could kind of continue your commitments that you had in society. So Pliny actually has a list of kind of notorious drunkards of society, and kind of keeps this running list based on how people respond to alcohol. Very interesting kind of thing to look at. And there's someone named M. Antonius, And Cicero hated him, discredited him, shamed him for his drinking, and he was the Magister Equitum, and he went to Hippa's wedding, and at Hippa's wedding he drank so much, and no one had an issue with his drinking. But the next day, as he was kind of in the tribunal fulfilling his civic duty, he actually vomited, so much so that it filled his entire lap, and it filled the entire tribunal with the smell of, quote, stinking bits of food reeking with wine. So because he kind of let his drinking and his drunkenness and hangovers interfere with his work and others, he was shamed. But there is lots of instances where people are almost glorified for being able to drink a lot but not having it interfere with their life. So interesting distinctions we have today. If you like this video and liked the information in it, please click the thumbs up button to show me that you liked it. And don't forget to subscribe for more lectures, because we have a lot of lectures coming up in this series, and they should be very interesting. Okay, I'll see you next week. Cheers!